Triple E EDC back again with another video. So this is the Demko AD-20 in titanium. This is a Cru-Wear version. This is a DLT exclusive. Now this comes obviously with a slotted blade or an unslotted blade. It comes in smooth titanium or this textured titanium. It comes in G10. It comes in Ivory. There's a slim version. There's now the AD-20.5, which is not US made. These are US made. The 20.5 is the sort of the large production run. Those are made in Taiwan. But all of the regular Demkos are made right here in the US in Waupun, Pennsylvania. So the Demkos, by the way, are a great company, and they're one of those companies that, like the Chris Reeve, like the Koenigs, like Endura, that you sort of just want to follow, right? You want to be involved. You want to. There's like a community for it. It's just one of those companies that are really cool to deal with. Now, everybody sort of knows, or a lot of people should know, that Demko designed the Triad lock. It's Andrew Demko. He designed the Triad lock. He also was involved with Cold Steel for a long time until they sold to GSM. Once they sold to GSM, he sort of, took the Shark lock, which I guess he had developed behind the scenes, and launched, the new Demko Knives company, and they've been around a little bit. This was actually my knife of the year, I think, for 2020. I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. I think it was 2020. And so, this is a really good knife. I just never did a full review on it, I don't believe, and so I'm going to do that now. Real quick, some size comparisons. I think most people, are probably familiar with the size of this because it's a pretty popular knife. But just in case you're not, that's a Spyderco PM2, so Spyderco Para 3. Here is the Endura XM24 and the XM18. So you can see it's sort of an in-between size on those. Here is the Spyderco Shaman and the, let's do the Shaman down here, and the Spyderco Military. Oh, I just cringed when I opened that with two hands. Spyderco Military. You can see it's sort of an in-between size on that. And here's the Benchmade Griptilian and the Mini Grip. Okay, that should do it for size comparisons on the knife. So it is a pretty big knife. One of the things about Demko is he tends to do fairly large handles. So the blade to handle ratio, which I guess I should probably cover later on in the negative. But I'll go ahead and cover it now because we're going to be talking about the blade. So the blade to handle ratio isn't the best on these, and I really would prefer that there would be a better blade to handle ratio. But one of the benefits of it, as we get to the blade, is this choil. It allows you for really good choke up on the blade, so you get really close. I mean, look how close you get to the edge here. It's definitely comfortable. You do not come into any contact with the edge, but you're right up on it, which gives you supreme control of the knife. The jimping extends out to a place where you can get the jimping from back here. I have size large glove hands, by the way, or you can move up and you still get the jimping. Which on a lot of knives, once you move up to the choil area, you no longer are in contact with the jimping. And so it really is nice that you're able to be in contact with the jimping. A sort of a good example of that is the Spyderco Shaman. So you can see the jimping on here sort of runs up to the top of the knife. I gotta stop opening these with two hands. It's embarrassing. So anyway, once you choke up on here, you see how far out my thumb is? It's no longer anywhere near the jimping, and so you're losing that grip control. But on this one, on the Demko, you're still behind. It'd be nice if it extended out, sort of to the end there a little bit, but I would say about 3/4 of your thumb is where the jimping is, which is plenty of room. The blade shape on this is really nice. It has sort of a, it's a drop point, but it almost has like a clip point, but a straight snip clip instead of a curved clip, which is kind of cool. It also has, There is no swedge. It is straight, but the corners are chamfered. They're not rough. There's lots of good finishing on this knife. The blade is stone washed, so it has this sort of cool stone wash finish on it. And the edge on this is ridiculous. Like for a knife this thick, I mean, it doesn't have thin stock. Again, you can see the stock against the Shaman here, right, which doesn't have thin stock itself. And here is the stock on the Griptilian, right? So the stock on this is pretty thick, but the edge is really good and really cuts through, you know, cardboard well. You know, I know a lot of us end up cutting a lot of cardboard, so it's one of the things that I mentioned, but cardboard's a good indicator of how easily it slices through a path, because a lot of things get hung up on cardboard because it's pressed together so tightly. And generally with a saber grind like this, you're going to end up, you know, as it goes up to the shoulder, you're going to end up wedging the cardboard apart enough that, you know, it's going to create some drag. And frankly, I think a combination of the stone washing, which is super smooth, and just the really nice edge they put on allows you to really just cut through, not quite like butter, but almost like butter. You know, the cardboard, it allows you to cut through very, very easily, which is excellent. The titanium handles on this are really great. The G10 version, so I don't think I've had the Grivery versions or the slim version, but I have had the G10 version and the titanium version. And if anyone's wondering, the titanium is totally worth the upgrade. Totally worth the upgrade. I have not had, I think all the titanium ones I've had are textured. Generally, you know, I'm assuming the non-textured is a little bit like, you know, like this, although maybe not quite as stone washed. But maybe a little bit lighter and shinier, but it is, the titanium, just the feel of it in general, makes a big difference on this knife. So it is something to note. The real star of the show here, though, is the Shark Lock. The Shark Lock is absolutely amazing. It's a very fidget-friendly lock, and it gives you such positive lockup. You know, you get that sort of, it's just so good every single time, right? Oh man, it is so good. The knife itself is, I believe these are on bearings, and they just have really nice action. Just really drop shot action. It's truly drop shot guillotine, right? And the Shark Lock itself, you know, like I said, it gets that great lockup, but it just feels good disengaging it. It feels good engaging it. Just a lot of good haptic feedback on it, which is excellent. Now, the ergonomics on this are really good. I would say, I mean, they are flat scales. Just be aware these are flat scales, but you don't feel the clip at all. And the ergonomics on this are really good. Like I said, size large gloved hands. If you have double XL hands, it might be a little small. That, you know, one of the drawbacks might be that you only really have this much room on here. But if you have double XL hands, you could use the choil. You might be used to using a choil on a knife like this. So just, you know, just a potential option. But because there's sort of a defined space for your fingers to go, it's ergonomic for my size hands. Not sure about a larger hand. But the ergonomics on this are really good. I would say, you know, considering these are flat scales and not contoured. If they were contoured, honestly, this would probably be like a 9.5 out of 10 on the ergonomics. But because they're flat scales, I'm going to go with about an 8.5 out of 10, which is really good for flat scales. So there's that. By the way, as far as steel choices, generally they've made these in 3V, they've made these in 20 CV. I believe there's a few in Magna Cut, although I think those might have been show specials. They may be coming out with more now, but I'm not quite clear. There are some DLC versions of these knives, but those are few and far between. So just some things to note. I believe at least last year's pricing, I didn't check to see if there was a hike in the pricing, but last year's pricing was $425 for the G10, $625 for the titanium. And at the retail price, you know, they're definitely worth it. Especially the titanium one is really, really worth it. The G10 one is sort of pushing value at that 425, 450 range. But the titanium one is definitely worth the price paid. It's one of the reasons the titanium version on the secondary market goes for, you know, $1,200 plus. I've seen it as high as $1,700, $1,800. And, you know, it really is kind of ridiculous, the prices. I will say this, at $1,200 plus, I'm not recommending it. But at the $625 price, or even at $700 or $800, this is a great knife, in the titanium version specifically. You know, very, very recommendable in that respect. Just some things to note. The standoffs here are pretty thick, but they are pretty plain, so that's a little bit neutral. And the lanyard hole is out of the way because it is incorporated into the clip, but it does force the clip down some. I also really like the pivot on these, the Demko Knives pivot with the wampum PA. I think it's really cool, and I love the fact that these are made in the USA, and there's great pride taken in that. All right, so that's the good. Let's go ahead and talk about the bad, because there is some bad on this. I don't know how, you know, the truth is I haven't watched any reviews on this in a long time, so I don't know what people have discussed as the bad, but what I see as the bad is a couple of things. Like I said, the clip is, I don't love Demko's clips. His clips tend to be kind of ugly, in my opinion. And specifically, you know, you've got a lanyard hole that's forcing this pretty far down. Kind of would have preferred to see, you know, either no lanyard hole or, you know, maybe a slightly different handle design to incorporate, you know, maybe a little farther back here, the lanyard hole, so it's not pushing the clip down. I don't know. So there's that. The other thing is I don't love the spacing in between the blade and, you know, and the handle here. You know, the PM2, for example, does a great job of not having any separation between that. The Griptilian does a great job of not having any separation there. But there are knives like the Delica and the Endura that tend to have some separation just like this. It's one of the drawbacks of those specific knives, and I don't love that when I see that. By the way, one of the things I forgot to mention is the hardware is a good size too. As you can see, I believe these are, well, I can see it. These are T8, I think. Yeah, so you got T8 hardware in here, and the pivot, I believe, is also T8. Yeah, the pivot's also T8. So you got nice T8 hardware. Probably the biggest drawback on this, and the thing that's a little bit annoying, is well, there's two things. One is this. So I don't like when, I like to have sort of a flat top on the knives because I tend to put my thumb down, and so it's not uncomfortable. By the way, there's pretty good jimping here. And it's not uncomfortable to put your hand there, but I feel like my thumb is forced back a little bit if I'm doing this. I do tend to reach over that and, you know, put my thumb here, which is comfortable, but again, then you've got this sort of sticking up there. That's sort of part and parcel of the shark lock design, but really the real issue I have is going to be I've had a couple of these. So I had one that was textured and slotted in 3V. This one is Cru-Wear and not slotted, textured titanium. I also had I believe a slotted G10 one at one point, and I've had two AD-20.5s. So both of my titanium versions had some lock stick, and the AD-20.5s, both of those had some lock stick. And, you know, just I don't know if I can force it to have, so that it's not engaging. Here we go. So yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but there was a little lock stick there just then. It doesn't happen all the time, but there are times when it happens and it ends up sort of becoming a little bit like a fixed blade. It's not something, you know, sometimes it's really smooth and easy to disengage, and then other times it's just completely stuck. Of course, it's not happening on camera as much, but it did happen that one time. But But yeah, there are times where like you really have to pull back and then it's sort of, you know, when you have I don't know if people sort of know, but a lot of Medfords have this issue where it, you get the lock stick so bad, you sort of have to jam your fingers in there and pull it back. You don't quite have that with this because it's not a frame lock, but you really, you know, there are times where you're sort of like pulling back, and it's like pulling back on a combat Trudon, you know, times 20, right? It's like really, really stuck. So, so anyway, that's probably the biggest drawback, you know, I would say is on here. However, it's a minority, a substantial minority of the time where that occurs, and with any of the models that I've had. But I can't say it doesn't occur. So, so there's that. So final conclusions on this knife is this is one of the, you know, one of the just most fun, awesome knives that's like sort of overbuilt that I've had in my collection. And it really is, you know, it's a lot of fun. It is like a big overbuilt knife. It really cuts super well for its size. I mean, it really is impressive how well it cuts for its size. And it is very recommendable in the AD-20 and the or the titanium and the the titanium and the G10 versions are very, very recommendable. I will say that I haven't had the Grivery. The Grivery tends to be $375. I think if you're paying $375 for Grivery, it makes sense to do an upgrade because usually Grivery feels very cheap. I had the Grivery scales on the original on the AD-20.5, I should say. I will say this: one of the benefits to the Grivery is that there are secondary market titanium scales. If you cannot get a hold of a full titanium AD-20, then one of the things you can do is buy a Grivery one at $375, buy some titanium scales, and make your own titanium AD-20. And I think that would be worth it. That would be the reason to get the Grivery scales. So again, I haven't tested it because I don't have the secondary market scales or the Grivery version, but I'm pretty sure I've seen other people do it, and they should be compatible because the Grivery ones are full size AD-20s. Now the Slims might be a different story, and definitely the AD-20.5s are actually a smaller knife, so those won't fit. But there are secondary market scales, possibly even titanium scales for the AD-20.5 as well. So anyway, that's my recommendations. I really do recommend this knife, especially in the titanium at market prices, maybe even a little bit above, at retail prices, MSRP, maybe even a little bit above MSRP, but I would not pay the $1,200 plus for the titanium that you're going to get on the secondary market. There's just a lot of other stuff that you can get for the same price. That being said, I will gladly buy a titanium one at over and over and over again, possibly even two at the same time at the MSRP. Thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit that notification bell so you can get all my content. Thank you guys for watching.